Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us for another Animal Career Day video. My name is Keeper Kiley and I'm here from the Lion Habitat Ranch where we do interviews with different animal field personnel from around the world to get you more information about what it's like working in this field. Today I'm working on a pretty special one that is near and dear to my heart. Today we're going to be talking about working with the animals who live under the water, which is something completely different, and it's really, really fun. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Hillary Jaffe. I am an aquarist or a biologist, so I work with all sorts of freshwater and saltwater fish, sharks, stingrays, jellyfish, and even coral.
Fantastic. Where are you living now? And did you have you always lived here, or did you move here?
So I live in Las Vegas. I haven't always lived here. I used to live on the East Coast, and I really wanted to work in an aquarium, and there weren't that many opportunities on the East Coast. So I'm like, all right, well, there's a whole bunch of aquariums here in Vegas, and I moved out here, and I'm a marine biologist in the middle of the desert using my degree, and couldn't have been happier.
That is awesome. Now that does bring up a really good point, guys. A lot of times if you do want to work in this field, you're probably going to have to move for it. I'm the same way. So a little background information about me. I too came to Vegas to be an aquarist. I moved out here to Vegas 9 years ago and I've been loving it ever since, but I too was on the East Coast, and you sometimes just have to go where the jobs are. There are quite a few opportunities, but it's still a pretty highly competitive field. So you end up applying to a lot of different places and going to wherever you need to. So it's a really good opportunity to see lots of different parts of the country, but if you want to stay local, it might be a little bit harder for you in this field. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now you touched on it a little bit. You are a biologist, a marine biologist. Do you have any sort of other certifications, and what kind of education do you need to really work in your field? What do you want to see on somebody's resume to make them a really good applicant?
So yes, I have a degree in marine biology, but I wouldn't say that that specific degree is necessary. Just something in the science field, probably biology is good. None of my coworkers, I don't think, have marine biology degrees, so it's not an absolute. But if you do want to work with aquariums, having an aquarium yourself or having taken care of them in the past is a really good thing. Definitely employers are going to like to see that. One really, really big thing that I waited far too long in my career to do is to get my scuba certification. A lot of different aquariums and even places that aren't specifically aquariums, they really want to see that you have that scuba certification. And I waited way too long to get it. It's probably my favorite part of my job, but I wish I had done it 10 years ago.
That brings up an awesome point. Scuba diving really is a really important skill in a lot of different ways. Actually, a lot of terrestrial zookeepers still end up needing to go and dive their exhibits, like polar bear keepers, penguin keepers. So that's a really good one. Guys, I really can't stress this enough, just like her. If you can get scuba certified, you can actually get certified as young as 15 with an adult with you. And once you have that certification, you have it. It's done. So getting your open water scuba certification, it really is a very helpful skill. So if you're coming up on your 16th birthday, instead of a car, I do recommend going and getting that certification, because I promise you it's going to last a lot longer, and you just never know how it's going to be helpful in this field. So it's definitely scuba certified is just an awesome, awesome life skill.
Yes. And you know too, if you don't know what you want to do, if you don't specifically want to work in a public aquarium, especially when you're in college, there's a lot of opportunities for internships going to the Caribbean and working with coral, but you have to have your dive certifications to do that. So it opens up a total new world.
That's so awesome. Can you imagine, guys, spending spring break doing amazing diving in beautiful locales? You're helping the environment, you're learning a lot, you're soaking up that beautiful sun, and you're seeing different parts of the world. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. You kind of touched on it as having some aquarium background. What are some of those skills and how do they come through? When you're working on the aquariums at home, what are some of those skills that you're gaining that can help being a professional aquarist?
So there's a lot of really small ones, maybe stuff that you might not think about. So I test my aquariums. I do water quality checks. So chemistry is going to be a good one. Pay attention in chemistry class. You need to at least need to know the basics of water chemistry and how to run titration tests. With aquariums, not necessarily the small ones, but when you get up into the public aquariums, plumbing is a big thing. Being comfortable around power tools. A lot of times budgets are very limited, so you have to build and create things, and being comfortable around the tools you need to do that is very important. I've learned it's taken a while to get to this point, but a little bit of electrical work. Again, stuff I never thought I would do, but if you have somebody that's willing to teach you, go and hang out with them. Follow your dad around when he's working on stuff in the garage. I think maybe we mentioned it earlier, you saying, like, hey, go to a local aquarium shop if you're interested. Ask if you can follow them around or do a job shadow.
Yes. If you guys, that's how I actually got started. I actually started working in my local fish store because I actually needed to get some biology volunteer work for my high school biology class. So I ended up just going to this local fish store and volunteering. Thanks for the idea, Mom. And it really ended up teaching me a ton of stuff that I never would have thought I would have needed. But yeah, plumbing, being comfortable cutting PVC pipe, gluing it together, it's really simple stuff, but learning it is just a huge help. So yeah, definitely, if you can't get to a major class, guys, there's probably a local fish store near you, and you never know where that might lead. So those are some really good resources. Awesome. So the life of an aquarist, it sounds very glamorous, but why don't you go through some of what your daily tasks include?
Oh, that's a good one. So a lot of what we do, and we do this multiple times a day, we have checklists that we go through. We write down pressures on different systems. We check our filters, we check our pumps. We want to make sure that the life support systems that are behind the animals and behind what you see are up running like they should. We don't want a pump or something to go out and we not be able to supply water to the animal system. So checking, being very observant and noticing little details, even like little sounds, you'd be amazed. I can be in my house upstairs on the far side of my house and I can know when something's off on one of my tanks. That water sounds wrong.
Yep, can confirm. And all of a sudden the sound of dripping water anywhere in the house will suddenly wake you up very quickly in the middle of the night.
Yep. So you get used to that. But then after we do all our checks and stuff, we're going to go up and take care of all of our animals in quarantine. So making sure that fish tanks are topped off, they have enough water in them, making sure that the animals look healthy. Again, a lot of it is really good observation skills. Sometimes, if a fish is sick, a lot of people don't notice it until it's almost too late. But if you're checking on those fish and looking at them and staring at them every single day, you're going to know right off when something's wrong with them. So that I take care of approximately 24-25 systems at work, and food prep for those systems takes a lot of time. So we do have some live food, but we also do a lot of food prep. Each of the animals or the animal groups in the systems, they have their own food, so we got to make sure that that is ready. And one of my favorite parts of our day, we do 2 interactive dive feeding shows. So we get to get in the tank and we get to feed our large stingrays. We get to educate the public about what we're doing, about our animals, and we get to feed the fish and we get to feed the sharks as well. So it's a really fun job.
That sounds so cool. I am gonna ask this: do you ever get scared being in with those animals? Does a stingray or a shark ever scare you?
When I first started, we have this one leopard shark. It's the largest one in the tank. I like to call him Storm. My nickname for him is Storm because when he comes, like, you won't see him, and then all of a sudden he's there, and he's kind of like flaring about, like all in your face, and then he's gone. And so at first, I wasn't familiar with that behavior, and we've actually gotten him trained. So now he's not quite as spastic when he comes out. He's really calm. He'll come and sit at your legs. But that made me nervous a little while when I first started.
Okay. Did you just say that you trained a shark?
I did. Well, yes. Actually, a lot of aquatic animals can be trained just like you can train your dog or your cat. I think I'm most proud. I've got a pufferfish. There's 5 pufferfish, but one of them is so smart. Like, he can swim through hoops. He's got a bunch of different targets he knows to come to you. So fish and sharks and stingrays, they can all be trained.
Wow, that's probably something I didn't think I would hear about, working with fish underwater. That sounds pretty amazing. You may have touched on it. Do you have a favorite animal, be it an individual or a species?
So puffers are definitely my favorite. A little puffer fish when I first started out as a hobbyist kind of got me interested in fish keeping, and then puffers specifically. They're just so personable and charismatic, and they're always busybodies coming over to check out, hey, what's going on? And because they're so curious, they're very easy to train. But our largest puffer is a spot fin puffer, and he's my buddy.
And I did want to go and touch on this a little bit. We were talking about how the fish maybe get sick and need veterinary care. You don't think about veterinary care for fish. Can you get into that a little bit more?
Yeah. So again, this comes with observation and looking at your fish every day. You know when something's not right, especially if it's, when a puffer fish is sick, I know right off, like, all right, my baby's sick. We need to pull him and take him in the back. And a lot of times you kind of have an idea of what's going on. But if not, there's a lot of great resources. And that's when we look to our supervisors who have a lot of experience, and they can help us to identify. But we have microscopes. So we're able to do skin scrapes, and we're able to look at that and see, hey, these are the signs the fish is presenting with. This is kind of what we need to look for, and that can help us narrow it down. And once we figure out what specifically is wrong, we're able to treat. There's medications just like you can give your dogs or your cats. There's medicine for fish. So we're able to treat them. And then once they're healthy, we can get them back in the big tank.
Wow, that's really cool. You guys, we probably never realized that the veterinary world is pretty big too. So when we talk about animal care, it really includes everything, including the health of the animals, which is always our biggest thing. So it sounds like not only do you have to keep the individual animals healthy, but also their environment. That's what they live in. You mentioned it, a system. What exactly is a system?
So a system is all of the components. You might not be able to see them, especially if you're on the outside. So you might just see a big tank, but there's going to be a big tank. There's probably going to be a heater or a chiller to keep the water at the right temperature. There's going to be some way of filtering the water to take out any pollutants or waste that's in the water. And then there's going to be some sort of pump to get the water back in the tank.
Oh yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that nobody would really see. There's a lot going on. Approximately how many gallons of water do you take care of, and what's your biggest system?
Total gallons of water, I'm not sure, because some of the systems are very large, like our quarantine systems. They're 750 gallons, 240 gallons. But our largest system is approximately 120,000 gallons. Wow. So if you think of your milk jug, that's 1 gallon. So if you can imagine 120,000 of those, a lot of water.
Yeah, and you have different systems for different individuals. Does it matter which fish can go where? Do you have to be concerned about who goes in what environment?
It does. So that's actually interesting, like fish behavior. So if you have a large enough system, you're pretty safe with being able to put a bunch of individuals that might not necessarily get along in that system, because there's space for them to get away from each other. They're not going to fight as much if you give them, specific habitats or rocks or plants to hide under or get away from their enemies. But if it's a smaller tank, you definitely have to watch who you put in where, because you don't want anybody fighting. And, too, especially when you bring in new fish, some of them could be sick. A lot of times you're not going to see that sickness, like I mentioned, right away. So keeping them separated and avoiding cross-contamination is a big part of things.
So those would be those quarantine systems you were talking about earlier.
Yep.
We definitely know what that word means right around now. So yeah, that's a big thing with it. When you have a fish who might not be feeling well, you definitely probably don't want to have to go into 125,000 gallons to get one little fish out. It's probably a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. There's been times where we've had to catch not necessarily sick fish, but older fish. There's a whole school of fish that we have, and occasionally, like, you can see when they're starting to get old, and us trying to swim around in there and catch one specific fish, I'm sure from the outside we look ridiculous.
But that just goes to show that even the individual fish, guys, one single fish gets all that attention. So there's a lot of fish in that system, and they're paying enough attention to tell when one single fish there needs help. That is time and dedication. These guys absolutely love every fish that they have to take care of. That's amazing.
And there's about 2,000 in the big tank. There's about 2,000 different fish, sharks, and stingrays in there. So it is a lot, but you know, we love what we do. When we come in, the fish and the sharks and the stingrays are the first thing we see. When we leave, as we clock out, they're the last thing we see. So if somebody's not behaving right or is acting weird, all right, got my eye on you, buddy.
That's so great that you have enough of that awareness that it's everything taken as a whole. You have all these little bits, and then that one little sliver of things might seem a little bit wrong, and you're able to go and fix that. That seems so awesome. So what is something about your job that nobody would expect?
I think maybe we touched on this a little bit earlier, but fish are really, really smart. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So I mentioned that I do some trainings. I've worked with the sharks. I'm specifically training our stingrays and our pufferfish. And when I'll go down there with the hula hoop and the pufferfish and their little target sign says, my sign's like, tap here for food. And the pufferfish comes over and taps the sign. I'm like, you can watch the guests. Oh, that's so cool. Look at that fish. Like, he's so smart. He can read.
That is awesome.
Smart.
Yeah, that's such a great, those little wow moments. You never know who you're going to connect with to maybe want to go and work with fish their own one day. That is a great, great moment.
Yeah.
What is a common misconception about your job? What would nobody really realize?
I'm gonna have to say that we do a lot of cleaning. Like, there are some really cool, fun parts. I talk about diving and being in the tank, but that's a very small portion of my job. We mentioned quarantine and cross-contamination and stuff. So, you know, there is a lot of cleaning that's done. Like, you or I am the one that is in charge of making sure this fish has a good, healthy, safe environment to live in. And if I'm not keeping up on my tanks, if I'm not cleaning it, you know, if I'm not cleaning those food containers that we use to give out the food to everybody, then, you know, fish aren't going to be able to do that. So it's a big responsibility and something we take pretty seriously.
Yeah, that sounds like it, because like you were talking about, those are some big systems. So one little thing can affect a whole entire microcosm of a universe. And that's a really serious job. We were talking about this earlier when it comes to what's going on in our world. I'm pretty sure that the animal care field knows how to do it. We've been washing our hands. We quarantine our feet. Do you guys have foot baths at work?
We sure do. We got foot baths. And it's crazy too. You know, sometimes we'll have to, like, as you're in your wetsuit and you've brought a fish out of the big tank and you have to go put it in the back in quarantine systems. But before you're able to go back on deck to the big tank, you have to go and shower off, because any of your gear, you might have had a sick fish. Even a tiny splash of water can hold some sort of pathogen or parasite. It only takes one drop of water to contaminate the system. So we definitely know sanitizing, washing our hands.
Yeah, and just for you guys who don't know, a foot bath is usually a little mat or a little bucket of water with just some cleaning agents in it that you just go and dip into to make sure that as you're walking different areas, you're not tracking anything. Because like we were talking about, one drop of water, maybe end up on the floor. Fish splash, you're splashing around. So even on the floor, their feet need to be cleaned too. So that's something that they really take seriously. So I think the animal care field knows how to take sanitation very seriously.
And, you know, along those notes, I've got 5 tanks at home. So when I come home after work, even though I've washed my hands, I always wash my hands like up to my elbows again before I put my hands in any of my tanks. Like, just an extra added layer of precaution.
Yep, I know that. My boots don't come home. They stay at work.
Yep.
What is your favorite part about your job?
I would have to say animal training. It's so, it's rewarding to watch people see how smart the animals are, but it's so cool to watch the animals learn and to develop those relationships with the animals. It just, I don't know, it's a very rewarding part of my job. I absolutely love it.
Do the fish recognize you?
Yes, actually. So this big spot fin puffer, it's funny, I was in training the stingrays one day and I wasn't really I was focused on my stingray, and sometimes I will record what's going on just so I can go back and look at my training. And when I when I looked back at the video, the spot fin puffer was following me around the tank, just like a foot and a half behind me. But the whole time he was just there, like, hey, that's my human. I'm gonna follow her. So
it's not human.
that's fine. So it's funny. I talk to coworkers and they're like, "Yeah, no, he doesn't do that with us. That's just you." I was like, "Oh."
So yeah, not only do they recognize when a human's in the water, they can recognize specific humans. That is really, really amazing. And when you have a connection with that animal, like that's a very specific, he recognizes you. That's an amazing, amazing aspect of these animals that people just might not understand that, yeah, these guys really are friends in a lot of ways. Fish are friends, not food, guys.
Yes.
What is the hardest part of your job?
It's actually a physically demanding job. I love it. It makes sure that I'm active. So even if I miss going to the gym, like I know that I've gotten my workout. We have to carry around 5-gallon buckets of water that can be, 50 pounds or so, 45, 50 pounds. That is pretty challenging. Also, I guess flexible. We have to fit into all sorts of awkward, tiny places. If you have to do maintenance or work on a tank, getting a wrench in there and like cranking on it when you're twisted and upside down is a lot more challenging than you would imagine. So
yes. Now what about cleaning the aquariums themselves? What does that take?
So the smaller systems, it's a lot easier. You can do like just take a piece of PVC with a scrubby brush on it. You can put in, your elbow, you're good. But when we clean our big system, that is full day tasks. So we break into teams of 2, and 2 of us will be in for 3 hours. We'll take a break for an hour, and then we'll get back in for another 3 hours. And we clean with their grout brushes, but it's, if you can imagine, like a toothbrush, a little bit bigger than a toothbrush, and we have to clean and scrub and just scrub and scrub. And it's exhausting. When I started, I would be done with scrub days, and I'd get out to my car and just, can I take a nap in my car before I go home? Like, I'm so worn out. But it's tiring, but it's rewarding.
Yeah, it is elbow grease there. And people might not realize you're not really weightless in water. You kind of are, but the water is pushing on you. And when you need to be in a very specific place, you're actually contracting your muscles, and you're maybe swimming a little bit against the current, holding yourself in place. That is a lot of strain on your muscles. So scuba diving, especially when you're working underwater, can be very, very physically taxing. So it might be prudent to make sure that your health and your physical fitness is up to par when it comes to working in aquatic environments. We'll probably be touching on that in some future videos where they might actually be a requirement for some of those jobs. So you see it when it looks like you're applying for a job, they might actually specify how much you have to lift. I can promise you when it comes to the animal field, ours is usually high up.
They say, I think 50 pounds on our application, but I think I've had to lift way more. And it's not the easiest stuff to carry. Sometimes it's really bulky. Sometimes it's like tank decorations or something, and you're like, oh, but.
Yeah, and water sloshes.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's hard when it's moving back and forth. Now, one thing I was thinking about and I wanted to bring up, how do you make salt water in the desert? Do you pump it in?
That's a good question. So some places are able to pump it in, but we actually make our own. So it's interesting. My camera is sitting on jugs of salt to make salt water right now. So salt will be in buckets or large boxes, and we just mix it in a big, large vat. And after it mixes for 24 or 48 hours, you can mix it to a very specific salinity. That's basically a measure of how much salt is in the water. So what animals you have are going to have a specific salinity that they need, and we mix it to where we need it. We're good.
That's really cool. So yeah, that's where the chemistry comes in. Being an aquarist is a really, really fun job because it brings in so many different aspects. And it's one of those things where if you like chemistry, if you like biology, you don't need to be a chemist. You don't have to go that deep into it, but you understand how those molecules come together. You understand how the behavior of animals comes together. Being a mechanic and working with your hands and knowing the physics of water, because water is a very unique system and how it pumps and filters and works. I think that this is just such a cool gig. Again, it's near and dear to my heart. I've always wanted to go and work in the marine field, so this is where I got my start. So I think the Aquarius site is just amazing. One thing I did want to touch on really quick is talking about the food, though. How much different types of food do your fish get?
Oh, that's a great question. So things like our jellyfish, so we have moon jellies, they get the same thing every single day. They get live little baby shrimp. Um, and every day we have to hatch those out of the egg. It's a whole process. But most of the other animals, they are going to get frozen food. So we thaw it out, we pull it the night before, and in the morning it's thawed enough that we're able to cut. Depending on animal's weight, they get a specific amount of food. So we want to make sure that they're maintaining weight, not necessarily gaining weight, but we want them to be at a healthy weight. So the food that we prep is specifically for the animals. So they're going to get things like smelt, squid, shrimp, mackerel, nori or seaweed. Let's see, what else do they get? It depends on the fish and the animal too. So like the stingrays are going to get larger chunks of food, probably like thick chunks. They can eat whole shrimp. But our smaller fish, like our clownfish, are going to get like little teeny tiny baby mysis shrimp. So a huge variety of stuff.
How do you go about feeding so many fish in such a large environment? You take your 2,000 fish. How do you feed all of them?
So we feed multiple times a day. So we'll start in the morning. We do what's called broadcast feeding. So here how I would feed this fish tank. I'm going to open it up and sprinkle food on the top. So all of the fish that are kind of swimming higher in the water column are going to go get that food. And then I've made, I call them nori clips. So it's 2 pieces of clear plastic, and you're going to sandwich seaweed in between it. And there's 2 or 3 of those that are attached to a big long chain that sinks in the water. And so fish like your hippo tangs or your dories and your yellow tangs and all of your algae eaters and stuff, they're going to come over and they're going to pick on that throughout the day. So that takes care of them. The stingrays and the sharks are specifically trained. They know at a certain time they need to be in a specific spot. So stingrays are gonna get fed on the window, the sharks are gonna get fed under the column. And then for all of the small little fish, we round like a ketchup bottle, and we'll just like target feed in all of the little nooks and crannies for everybody else.
That is a lot of work when you have to go. It's a restaurant for fish. If everybody's ordering something different, you got to prep up those dishes pretty fast.
And two, like, I mentioned all those foods, but it is restaurant quality seafood. So a lot of the stuff is, what we would be ordering when we go out to the restaurant, or, if I'm going to cook some seafood up here at home, same quality stuff.
Delicious. We like our sushi.
Nope.
Well, I think that just about covers it. I cannot thank you enough for coming and sharing with this. Hopefully we're able to go and really let people know that there are so many great opportunities in the animal care field that are very unique and fun and challenging and offer a really broad array. If there's something that you find interesting, this might be a really good field. Now, how did you kind of start deciding that fish was the way to do this?
That's a really good, so I was a hobbyist for a while, but a lot of my work in school, my graduate work, was on living shorelines and coastal restoration. But, in college, I didn't limit myself to anything. I'm like, oh, somebody needs help working with mussels. Somebody needs help working with dolphins. There's an internship for sea turtles. I'm going to sign up for everything. And slowly you could kind of weed out what you do and you don't want. And, I don't want to say I fell into a position as a service technician for a pet store, but I kind of did, and that just started everything. Like, yeah, fish are really cool. I think I want to work in a public aquarium. It'll be cool.
Great opportunities. Yeah, when it comes to working with animals, guys, don't limit yourself at first. Don't be like, I am working with hyenas and that's all I'm going to work with, and I'm never going to look at other job opportunities. The field is pretty competitive. So if you don't have experience working with other animals, chances are working with an animal might require a lot of experience. And it's probably the same with the aquarium side. You heard earlier just how many different pieces need to come together. You need to understand a little bit of chemistry. You need to understand a little bit of biology. So if you don't have some of those experiences, even with different animals, it's going to be pretty hard to kind of get your foot in the door. So is there a way that you think people can kind of get their foot in the door to start with?
Yes, volunteer, 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 volunteer. I know you work with a lot of volunteers, and honestly, some of the jobs in my career, I got them because I started out as a volunteer. I was like, I kind of like this. I continued to put in the time, and then they had a position open. It might have been an internship or whatever, and they're like, hey, we know that you're dependable. Come on, join us. We're going to pay you to do this. And so, yeah, just put out feelers, figure out what you do and what you don't like, and
that is awesome. Well, we're going to end up cutting it here. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. I really appreciate it. Guys, stick around. You're going to be seeing more of these videos every Tuesday coming out. And if there's a field that maybe catches your or sparks your interest, go ahead and drop that down below. I'm still going to be going out and reaching out to different people with different fields. So if there's something specific to you, we're able to kind of reach out as a community and do some of these interviews with people all over the world. So this is a really great opportunity. If you happen to like what you see, please share this video, tag somebody who you think might be interested. If you know somebody in high school or college who you think being an aquarist might be a good opportunity, tag them, share this video. We'd love to go and get that out. And if you have questions, we're able to go and communicate. I'm going to be sending questions to Hillary, and she'll be able to go and get back to you as well. So this is really the time to go and start broadening those horizons. Once again, I want to say thank you so much to those who have donated and have helped kind of get us through this time. Donations are still needed, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much for those. If you have the opportunity to go and donate, you can donate right here on the Facebook page or by visiting thelionhabitatraNch.org. And again, any questions you have, please, this is a great time to go and ask them. Drop them down in the comments below. Share this video, get the word out, because there is an amazing opportunity out there that people don't even know about. So thanks for helping us get the word out. We'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, Hillary.
Thanks.